Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Now, the Zana mods have been released today, and this is part 2 of a two-part series. Part 1 was more aimed at beginner players that aren't familiar with the Zana mods, bringing them up to speed on what they do. Part 2 is more aimed at people that are sort of 36 of challenge players in multiple leagues in the past, that are intimately familiar with what all of the Zana mods do, and just want to discuss some of the economic and gameplay impacts that these mods being available, or importantly not being available, will have. So if you're not familiar with the Zana mods, if any of these jump out to you as something you're not sure what it does, then perhaps check out video number 1 in first or instead of watching this video. Firstly, what's missing? Always the first thing I'll check for is what's missing on the Zana mods, and the one that really stands out as missing is Beyond. Now, Beyond is all about the XP. It stacks with the Beyond map mod, and they combine to just vomit out magic and rare monsters onto the map. Essentially, it works as a multiplier for pack size, and it stacks with sextants and so on. So any way that you can get extra monsters onto the map, Beyond would then provide a multiplier that would produce more magic monsters, more rare monsters, and occasionally more of the bosses as well. Characters that were powerful enough to do maps with Beyond generally didn't care about the bosses. Additionally, Beyond had a very big impact on how powerful Headhunter was. Because it produced so many extra rare monsters on a map, those rare monsters would mean that you would have more Headhunter buffs going all of the time. So, what's the implications of Beyond being gone? Well, firstly, it means that there's just less XP available in mapping. And what happens when one aspect of acquiring a major reward in game is nerfed, there's more demand for the alternatives for it. So with mapping being less lucrative for XP, non-map sources of XP such as pure breach stones, which for some bizarre reason have been buffed in 3.8. I'm not really sure why that's been done, but anyways, it's been done. And the Domain of Timeless Conflict will become even more lucrative. These really didn't need it. They should have been nerfed instead. So I'm really not sure what's going on with that decision. But in this league, if the league mechanic is lucrative and if there is a reason to hit level 100, such as a endgame grind challenge, expect the very rich to spend even more pushing 100 than they did in previous leagues. So this means that your purified breach stones are going to be potentially more expensive than they were, and your Domain of Timeless Conflict entries will be more expensive, with that being subsidized by very wealthy players spending a lot of Exalted Orbs and a lot of Chaos Orbs in purchasing their way into these sort of lucrative sources of additional XP. However, we don't know what the Blighted maps are going to be like. Maybe they'll compete with the Domain of Timeless Conflict, maybe they'll compete with breach stones, maybe they won't. Now, I'm going to a section that I'm going to put into this video later, which is day 1 implications of the Zana mods. I don't just mean day 1, I mean sort of the first few days of the league, the period in which maps or items are scarce. Now, in my experience, this is generally maybe 4 days of a league, but I'm just going to call it day 1. So I want to go through each of the mods in turn and discuss its implications, but some of them I will put off to that part. So firstly, Fortune Favours the Brave is essentially a new player trap. It does very little of value. You can't make it synergize with the mods that are already on the map. So for instance, if you put ambush on a map when you weren't planning for it, you don't get much in the way of returns from it. Fortune Favours the Brave, I don't recommend ever using. Just treat it as though it doesn't exist. Except, of course, if you just want to experience a mod. There's the 4 maps that transform the tier or the zone that of the map. So that is alternate of the same tier through to Eldra map. Those I'm going to discuss in day 1 implications instead of going through them now. Now we have the warbands. Warbands is a largely irrelevant mechanic for veteran players. Definitely worth checking out the fights if you haven't seen them, but they drop no significant loot. They are being changed to drop more maps, but I think in general the opportunity cost of foregoing the percentage increased item quantity is probably high enough that there's no real incentive to bother with warbands. The exception here is if there is a challenge that is linked to killing all of the warband leaders, because there are a lot of them. If that's the case, then you might end up seeing players spending a lot of Chaos Orbs rolling warbands over and 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 over again, trying to get all of those specific warband bosses to spawn. Even then, I don't think it will be a big Chaos Orb sink in the economy either. Now, Abysses. Abyss I'm going to discuss in the Day 1 section because it is much more significant at the start of a league than it is in a mature league. It doesn't really do much in a mature league, but Abyss does a lot very early on. Ambush. Ambush comes down to the strongbox stacking strategies. Now, these are viable when you roll the Sextant mod that makes strongbox monsters enraged and gives 500% increased item quantity to strongbox monsters in a zone. However, the strongbox mod is rarer than it used to be, and this has pretty much nerfed that strategy as a reliable source of currency early in a league. However, if you do roll that strongbox mod by chance, then give some thought to rolling up some 8 mod maps and of the map that's affected, and then using ambush on it, using an ambush scarab and a cartographer's scarab if it's a tier that drops good maps. So, for instance, if you've got it on a tier 16 map, then definitely use a cartographer's scarab. A divination scarab if it is on a map that has premium divination cards, like lair or tower or burial chambers, and see how you go with that strategy. You may even want to use pop a monstrous treasure prophecy. However, this is not quite as reliable as it used to be back in the days when you were 1 in 18 to hit that strongbox mod on any single sextant that you used. Not sure exactly how rare it is now. I think it might be about 1 in 35, 1 in 40 Master Cartographer's Master Cartographer's sextants to hit it. Next up we have Bloodlines, and Bloodlines has gone from being the most powerful mod as it was up to, I believe it was Delve League that it was nerfed. It was just this forgotten secret that you either were running Bloodlines on every high tier map that you ran, or you were wrong. That was changed. Bloodlines was nerfed from so good that it was objectively wrong not to use it to so weak that there's basically no reason to use it. I just suggest treating Bloodlines as though it doesn't exist. It lost so much when it was nerfed that it no longer really justifies the 3 chaos and the opportunity cost of missing out on the flat quantity bonus that you get otherwise. Now, we have Nemesis, Breach, and Harbinger, the ones that you'll get a little bit later into the league. So, Nemesis. Headhunter has not been nerfed. Headhunter is still insane. Headhunter is still very, very rare. However, Headhunter also doesn't have the Beyond map mods to synergize with. However, Headhunter is still the best item in the game, and this is going to be a huge increase in the demand for all of the following items in the whole league. It is going to increase the demand for Shaper-influenced leather belts of any item level. I suggest that you actually value these quite highly. Space Hunters are very, very, very valuable. Nemesis existing will increase the value of Chance Orbs. It will increase the value of Scouring Orbs, and it will increase the value of Ancient Orbs. Now, Ancient Orbs don't synergize with the quest for a Space Hunter, so the shaped items do not maintain their Shaper or Elder status when they're hit with an Ancient Orb. However, shaped items do maintain their Shaper status when they're hit with Scouring Orbs and with Chance Orbs. So, for that reason, Shaper-influenced Headhunters, which are absolutely incredible in conjunction with the overpowered unique item Eternity Shroud, will be a huge reason to run Nemesis on a number of maps. Additionally, as well as the ability to scour Chance a Headhunter or a Space Hunter in a Nemesis map, or to Ancient Orb up a Headhunter, Nemesis also grants the ability for Headhunter to just drop. What I would suggest you sometimes consider doing is, if you roll a particularly juicy 8 mod map, maybe just throw Nemesis onto it for basically a lottery ticket. It's a chance to hit a Headhunter we don't really have enough information to do accurate numbers on how likely it is, on how much of a payoff it is, but it does seem like it's a reasonable one, especially given that the costs are slightly alleviated by the fact that you will get more rare monsters in there, which means more loot on the times that you don't hit the Magic Headhunter drop, which will be the overwhelming majority of them. Now, next up we have Breach, and I think as far as additional monster sources go, Breach is probably inferior to Harbinger. I just think that's got to be said. Harbingers add more monsters and also do it at a bit of a lower cost, because where Breach gives you some splinters, of which only Chayula ones are worth picking up, Harbinger gives you currency shards. And I'll get into Harbinger a little bit more in a sec, but I think it just outclasses Breach. Where Breach is okay. Breach is okay as a source of extra monsters that can drop divination cards, but it's just okay, it's not great. Use it or not as you see fit. I do think it's better on tier 16 maps than on lower tier, and that's because Chayula breaches become more common the higher the tier of the map that you're running. I don't know if this is a linear increase, or if there's some complex formula involved, or if there are key breakpoints, but it certainly feels like you get more Chayula breaches if you're running sort of tier 12 and up maps, really. Chayula breach stones should probably hold a reasonable value through this league, which means that each time that you get a Chayula breach in a map, if your character's powerful enough to kill everything that spawns and you're able to get to all of the breach hands, I think on average you'll expect to get between 8 and 12 Chayula splinters. That is an average. Sometimes you will get a breach that is just really disappointing and gives you next to none. And I'm kind of guessing we'll be looking at maybe the 1.5 chaos mark per Chayula splinter, so that'd mean 12 to 18 chaos orbs for each time that you get a Chayula breach appear in your map. So maybe there's a little bit of a project there that someone can do, is run 100 maps using Zana breach, 100 tier 16 maps, and just count the number of Chayula breaches that you get. Maybe it'll turn out that it's a worthwhile mod to use. Next up, in terms of adding extra monsters onto a map, we have Harbinger. Now, there are several items that Harbingers drop, currency shards, that have pretty insatiable demand. First up, Harbingers rarely drop Exalted Shards, and Exalted Shards are, of course, always in real demand. More commonly, though, they drop Ancient Orb Shards, Harbinger Orb Shards, and Annulment Orb Shards. Now, I think in this league, Harbinger Orbs are going to be in considerable demand, but ultimately, I feel that the Beachhead does not match up to pure Breach Stones and does not match up to the Domain of Timeless Conflict. Beachhead was an older version, before a couple of levels of power creep in the game, of basically an endgame super map that was super lucrative at the time. However, it hasn't improved in its rewards, and everything else in the game has. For that reason, I don't think there's going to be enormous demand for Harbinger Orbs. This could change if there are challenges that relate to doing the Beachhead, but in the absence of that, I think that Harbinger Orbs will not be particularly lucrative this league. However, Exalted Shards, as I said, will be in huge demand. They always are. And Ancient Orbs will be in huge demand because we have Nemesis to pair them with. So if you're in a map that has the Nemesis mod added to it by Zana, you can Ancient Orb a unique belt, and it can become Headhunter. There's also a couple other tricks with Ancient Orb that will sometimes come up where you can turn, for instance, a common league exclusive drop into a very rare non-league exclusive drop. But generally speaking, the demand for Headhunters sets the price for Ancient Orbs, and it will set them high. So, Harbinger should be pretty lucrative. You're adding a lot of monsters to a map, a hell of a lot of them. You're getting a couple of big drops of these currency shards. One implication of this is that Harbinger Orbs sort of, I wouldn't say they shit out Annulment Orb Shards, but they do drop a fair number of them. I think that supply of Annulment Orbs this league is going to dominate demand in a way that it hasn't really in recent leagues. So we look at the last couple of leagues. In Synthesis, Annulment Orb demand absolutely dominated supply. Annulment Orbs hit something like 90 or 95 chaos towards the end of that league, but they were pretty steadily high throughout the whole league. Synthesis was an outlier, and that was because there was incredible synergy between Annulment Orbs and some of the Synthesis League crafting mechanics. Then along comes the next league, Legion, and there was no real synergy between the Legion, any of the Legion mechanics and Annulment Orbs, but Annulment Orbs are just good, and so they wound up around the 35 chaos mark towards the end. I think in this league, the presence of Harbinger as probably the best all-purpose Zana mod means it will be used a lot, and there will be a flood of Annulment Orbs in the economy. I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that they're not going to exceed 15 chaos in this league. Additionally, I think that Harbinger being so good, and the reason it's good is because the Ancient Orb demand is going to be insatiable, this is going to increase the demand for Chaos Orbs throughout the whole league, because I think you're just going to default to using Harbinger. Once you unlock it, you're going to default to using it unless you have a good reason not to on a given map. So for that reason, in the long term, I think that Harbinger will be an interesting effect on the game economy. Now let's talk day one implications, and that is where some of these earlier mods that modify the tier of a map come in to be really significant. So, firstly, let's go with Abyss as the first one we discuss. Abyss jewels are still good despite their considerable nerf they received in Legion. Crafters buy heaps of them, and the red-headed stepchild of the bunch, the Ghastly Eye jewel, will be good in this league. In fact, it may even be the most in demand early on. That is the minion optimized Abyss jewel. Now, Abyss jewels are very sensitive to item level. Item level 84 ones are considerably better than 83 because they can roll tier 1 chaos damage. Item level 83 are considerably better than item level 82 because they can roll, I think it's usually tier 1 physical damage that's added at 83. Every single point of eye level matters. This means that there is going to be a very real market for these from crafters days 1, 2, and 3 of the league. If you can get towards the center of the Atlas that early, then you will want to seriously consider running Abyss on every single map you do, assuming you can handle it, and just blitz through the Atlas, get to the center, and then just focus on looting those jewels ASAP. Identify them, and then just stick them into a tab where you're going to be selling them. Ideally, you want to be selling them in bulk. You want to find crafters that want to buy, maybe you'll get one person that's trying to craft Ghastly Eye jewels for all of the new minion builds, that's just going to buy a shitload of Ghastly Eye jewels off you, and then the next person will buy all your Searching Eye jewels because they're still crafting for the Archer meta. There'll be lots of demand for them, and this demand will taper off over about a week or so. I think it will be a very viable option in week 1 to run tier 15s with Abyss. So that's Abyss. Later on in the league, it also remains an option to add Abysses to your maps as a bit of a lottery ticket, with the goal of getting a 2-socket Tomb Fist or a 2-socket Bubonic Trail. Really depends on the prices of those two items, whether adding Abyss tier maps is worthwhile. Additionally, you also need to make the decision will you bother following the Abysses? Can you be bothered doing them? Because ultimately, eventually, you can get to a point in a league where you say, you know what, this Abyss is just going to take too long, I'd rather just start a new map. And obviously, if you've got that mindset, then you definitely don't want to be using Abyss. And that'll be later in the league that you might get to that point. So there's the implications with Abyss. I think it'll be a good mod early and a mediocre mod late, but something that you can certainly consider. Now we have the options that modify the tier of a map. So we have alternate of the same tier. This is something you should be using yourself early on in order to turbocharge your Atlas bonus. Selling maps is a very good way to build initial currency, and Atlas bonus is an extremely important part of doing that. However, I don't think that using alternate of the same tier is particularly a good way to farm currency. It's just a way of defraying the amount of time that you spend trading early league. Now we have the three that have really significant economic impacts: shaping a tier 1 to 5 and shaping a tier 1 to 10 map, and then less significantly eldering a tier 1 to 15 map. So this creates a very short opportunity to profit extensively from map sales early in a league. You'll need a powerful build and one that can deal with every mod on maps ideally, but every mod bar one is okay too. Once you start having a couple of mods that stop you from being able to do a map, so for instance, if your build is something like the Blade Vortex Elementalist from a few leagues ago that dealt physical damage as well as elemental damage, the tri-element Blade Vortex builds. These builds aren't so great anymore anyway, but if you're playing one of them, they can't do physical reflect, they can't do elemental reflect, and they struggled quite a bit with zero regen. So you've got 3 map mods that you would really struggle with. Those builds were really bad for this sort of strategy. You want to have at most one mod that your build is allergic to. And ideally you want to have a backup plan. For instance, in the Legion League, my character couldn't do physical reflect maps. But if I got a particularly juicy one, I could do a fair bit of it just by using my Ancestral War Chief Totem and just resummoning it over and over again. That was an option, and I did that on 2 or 3 occasions when I only had one copy of a map and I was trying to get it done for Atlas completion, and the stupid thing varled into a physical reflect map, which sort of made me a little bit annoyed. So this creates a short-lived opportunity to profit from map sales, and strong builds should consider rushing to the Shaper tier 10 to tier 15 mod. Weaker builds should rush to the Shaper tier 5 to tier 10 mod. What this will let you do is then generate an enormous amount of tier 10 maps that you can then sell very cheaply. In terms of how you do this, you will need to progress Zana's quest chain up to the 5th Shaper's Orb to get the first mod, or the 10th Shaper's Orb to get the second one, or to the Shaper in order to get the Elder. And when I say up to, I mean up to and including. Once you've done that, you will then also need to ensure that every tier of map that can drop in the maps you're running is able to drop. So if you're upgrading tier 5 maps to tier 10 using the first mod, you want to make sure that you've completed at least one tier 11 and at least one tier 12 natural map on the Atlas. And the reason for this is that it's absolutely essential that you're not getting your maps downgraded. If you've done absolutely no tier 12 maps and then you complete a tier 10 map, the boss has a chance to drop a +2 map, and so that'll downgrade to tier 11. That's not an absolute tragedy, but what is if you run a map, you would have had 3 tier 11s drop in it, and you've done no tier 11s, and so therefore all of them downgrade to tier 10. So if you're running this mod, then complete a bunch of tier 10s, not necessarily everything up to tier 10, just most things up to and including tier 10, plus at least one tier 11, and ideally one tier 12 as well. Then start running all your tier 5 maps with this mod. Just go bang, 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 do heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of them. And if you can do that while they've got Elder and... Oh no, actually Elder and Shaper Influence won't help you at this point, just because of the mechanics of the Atlas. With this second mod, it works the same way, except you'll need to have advanced the Zana quest further. It is very much worthwhile to spend a lot of currency early on purchasing maps so that you can push the Elder to that point on the Atlas that early on. You will make it back. You will make it back very quickly. Even if you wind up buying tier 15 maps in order to complete Zana's chain, even if you're paying 30 chaos for them and you're then only able to sell them for 20 chaos, you're only able to sell your returns for 20 chaos, it will still be lucrative. Make sure that if you're doing this, that your inputs are all tier 10, so that you get tier 15s, and make certain that you've completed a tier 16 map. This is going to sound like heresy, but it is absolutely fine for your first tier 16 map for this purpose to be, say, a Pit of the Chimera that you are just running as a white map. Not even making it, not elking it, not even transmuting it. Just run it white so that you definitely can beat it when your character's really weak at the start of the league. And then when you're running your tier 10 augmented to tier 15 maps, they'll be able to drop Pit of the Chimera for you as well, even though you won't have the Atlas bonus on it yet. Lastly, you want to be using these mods on maps that have an inherently high number of monsters on them. For tier 10 maps, this is Moon Temple. Moon Temple, which then shapes up to 15, is by far the most monsters that's available on any tier 10 map. For this reason, I expect to see a repeat of the Synthesis League economy, where Moon Temple was 3 times the price of other tier 10 maps early on. Maybe not 3 times, but it was in Synthesis. And that was because during the period that there was a huge Reddit panic about maps being, supposedly too scarce to possibly sustain, there were a whole lot of people that were just doing exactly what I'm discussing here and making absolute bank on selling maps selling maps into this panic that was caused, this hysteria that maps were supposedly so rare. These people were just going and run 100 Moon Temples using this mod, get perhaps 40 tier 16 drops from them, and 70 tier 15 drops, and a whole bunch of 14s and 13s as well. Sell all of them and set themselves up with a headhunter, set themselves up with onslaught boots if they were in the economy at that point. Lastly, we've got the Eldra map option. This is much less valuable, this league, than it has been in the past. In the past, it had great synergy with Master Missions. That's gone, and so for that reason, I don't really see much use for I don't really see much use at all for this mod to Eldra map. I do need to see exactly how it interacts with the Master Missions, just to make certain that if there is an option to, say, get more value out of your white tier Nico missions by using them in conjunction with this somehow, which I don't think there will be, but if there is, then I'll reassess it. But otherwise, there's no urgency to unlocking this mod. The one that's urgent to unlock is this tier. Okay, so that is day 1 covered. That is all of the old League mods covered. And that's all we've got for the moment. If you've got any questions, definitely fire away below. Otherwise, I hope you have a good one, and good luck in the Blight League.